The sky was a bright blue, and the world seemed at peace. That was until they arrived. A massive fleet of ships appeared in the sky, blocking the sun, their silhouettes casting long shadows over the earth. People stared in awe as the ships slowly descended, like giant metal birds. The news spread across every nation in seconds, and soon everyone was watching. The alien fleet was massive, beyond anything anyone could have imagined. They claimed they had come to save humanity from an impending disaster, a disaster that had no name but seemed to loom over the entire world. Leaders from every country were quick to meet with them, and in the blink of an eye, the aliens had formed partnerships with the most powerful nations. They promised to share their advanced technology, cure diseases, and bring about a golden age of peace. Humanity was on the brink of something extraordinary. The people were divided. Some believed the aliens were the saviors they had been waiting for, while others felt uneasy, sensing something wasn't right. But who could argue with such grand promises? It was the perfect pitch. The aliens, with their cold, shiny bodies and smooth, glowing eyes, spoke of their advanced civilization and how they had traveled across the stars, learning from every world they visited. They spoke with a calm, soothing voice, making it seem as if everything they said was true. "We've watched you for a long time," one of the leaders said in a deep, reassuring voice. "And we have come to help you, to guide you through the darkness ahead." World leaders agreed to work with them, trusting their promises. But not everyone was so quick to trust. A small group of scientists, led by Dr. Emily Carter, began to ask questions. Why had the aliens arrived now, just when humanity seemed to be struggling with its own problems? Why had they waited until the Earth was on the brink of collapse? And why did they refuse to allow humans to visit their ships, despite the promise of shared knowledge? Dr. Carter and her team began to investigate. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a series of strange coincidences. The aliens were helpful after all. They gave Earth advanced medical technology that seemed to cure diseases overnight. They helped reverse environmental damage, fixing the damage done by years of pollution and climate change. People started to believe in them even more. They were saviors, coming just in time to prevent humanity from falling apart. But Dr. Carter couldn't ignore the growing feeling that something was wrong. She noticed that while the aliens were giving humanity technology, they were also taking resources, rare minerals, precious metals, and even human-made technology in secret. What were they doing with it all? What could they possibly need from Earth that they hadn't already taken? Her questions led her to a hidden government archive, one that had been sealed off for decades. Inside, she found a report about a previous encounter with extraterrestrials, one that had been covered up for years. The report stated that a similar alien race had once promised to help humanity, but instead, they had used their advanced technology to control and manipulate the human race for their own gain. The aliens had left, their true motives hidden, and the world was none the wiser. Dr. Carter's heart sank as she read the document. Was this happening again? Were the aliens on Earth now only pretending to help, while secretly preparing to take control? Her suspicions grew stronger, but she had no proof. Nothing concrete. She decided to bring her findings to the government, but when she tried, she was blocked at every turn. Someone didn't want her to speak the truth. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was celebrating. The media painted the aliens as heroes, and the people embraced them like family. The humans were being told that this was the start of a new era, an era of peace and prosperity. But what no one knew was that beneath this facade of kindness, the aliens were watching, calculating, and waiting for the right moment. A few months passed, and as Dr. Carter dug deeper into the hidden files, strange things began to happen. People who had been involved in the investigation started disappearing. At first, it was small, unimportant people, scientists, researchers, journalists, disappearing without a trace. Then, high-ranking officials who had shown too much curiosity began to vanish. The government was too quiet about it, offering no explanations, but whispers began to spread. Some said the aliens were behind it, while others suggested a more sinister force was at work. Dr. Carter couldn't ignore the pattern any longer. There was something dark about these beings. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that the truth was much worse than she could have imagined. She shared her findings with a trusted group of colleagues, but when they tried to warn the public, they were met with resistance. The aliens were too powerful. The world had already fallen in love with them. The leaders couldn't back out now. How could they? They had promised the people peace and prosperity. How could they turn their backs on the very beings they had welcomed with open arms? But Dr. Carter wouldn't give up. She knew the truth, and she knew that humanity had to know it too. The aliens had lied. They had manipulated the world into a false sense of security, all while planning to take control. They had already started dismantling Earth's defense systems, using technology to influence minds and control governments. The world was blind, caught up in the illusion of peace and progress, unaware of the looming danger. As Dr. Carter looked out over the city, she saw people celebrating in the streets, their faces lit up by the glow of the alien ships above. They had no idea what was coming. The aliens had played their part too well. The people were too trusting, too naive. But Dr. Carter knew that the truth would come out sooner or later. She just didn't know if it would be too late by the time it did. As the months passed, the world seemed to grow more and more dependent on the aliens. Humanity had come to trust them completely. Technology that had once seemed impossible was now a reality, and with it came an era of peace and stability. Disease was nearly eradicated, poverty was decreasing, and the environment began to heal. People were happy, and governments were no longer in turmoil. The aliens had done the impossible, at least. That's what the world thought. But there were whispers that couldn't be ignored. People began noticing things, small things at first. Why were certain groups of people being watched so closely by the alien forces? Why were they always lurking in the background of important events? And then, there was the strange change in the behavior of the leaders. No one could quite put their finger on it, but something was off. The once confident leaders who had welcomed the aliens with open arms now seemed hesitant, even fearful at times. Their decisions were becoming more erratic, as though they were being pushed in certain directions by an unseen force. Dr. Emily Carter, still deeply concerned, had continued her investigation. She was relentless, now more certain than ever that the aliens weren't here to help. They had an agenda, one that they had carefully crafted over time. With the help of a few trusted allies, she began to dig deeper into the aliens' true intentions, finding more and more evidence that the so-called peaceful saviors were not what they seemed. It wasn't until she infiltrated a hidden alien facility, an underground base that only the highest-ranking officials had access to, that the pieces finally began to come together. The walls were lined with complex technology, some of which she couldn't even begin to understand. But one thing was clear. The aliens were collecting and studying human data, personal data, behavioral patterns, even genetic information. They had been monitoring humans for much longer than anyone had realized, tracking their weaknesses and preparing for the right moment to strike. What she uncovered shocked her to her core. Hidden in the base was a series of secret documents, many of which were inalienable to the public. They painted a very different picture of the aliens' motives. Rather than arriving to save humanity, the aliens had known that Earth was not on the verge of collapse, as they had claimed. The disaster they had spoken of, this so-called extinction event, was a complete fabrication. There had never been any threat. The aliens had manufactured the crisis in order to justify their arrival. They had needed an excuse to invade, and the idea of saving a struggling planet had been the perfect cover. But it wasn't just the Earth they were after. The aliens were manipulating governments around the world, subtly twisting their decisions, turning leaders into puppets. The alien technology, so advanced and desirable, had been used as bait. Every gift they gave humanity came at a price that the world had yet to fully comprehend. Dr. Carter, feeling the weight of this discovery, knew that she had to act fast. The more she learned, the more she realized that time was running out. The alien influence was spreading, and they were growing more powerful by the day. The people had no idea what was happening. They were too consumed by the alien gifts and the so-called promises of a better future to notice the subtle changes happening around them. The government, too, seemed to be falling under the aliens' control. The truth was buried deeper than ever before. The final straw came when Dr. Carter learned of a plan the aliens had been executing in secret. They had already begun to undermine Earth's defenses. Military installations were being quietly disarmed, powerful weapons systems dismantled, and key strategic locations were being infiltrated and neutralized by the aliens' technology. And no one seemed to notice. No one except for her and a small group of rebels who were willing to fight back. But fighting back was no easy task. The alien forces were too powerful, their technology too advanced. A direct confrontation with them would mean certain defeat for humanity. Dr. Carter knew that they needed more than just weapons. They needed knowledge. They needed proof. Proof that could wake the people up before it was too late. She made contact with a few trusted allies, including an old friend who was an expert in covert operations. Together, they devised a plan to expose the truth to the world. They had to gather evidence, hard, irrefutable proof, that the aliens were lying and had been manipulating humanity all along. They would need to infiltrate a major alien facility where they believed the most crucial data was stored. As Dr. Carter prepared for this risky mission, a feeling of dread settled in. She knew it would be dangerous, and there was a real possibility they would be caught. The aliens had eyes everywhere, but she couldn't sit idly by anymore. The stakes were too high. The world was too blind. Meanwhile, across the globe, the alien presence continued to grow stronger. Major cities were now filled with alien technology. Floating ships, advanced vehicles, and even alien soldiers moving through the streets like they were part of the scenery. The people had become so used to their presence that they barely even looked up anymore. Life was peaceful, or so it seemed, but Dr. Carter knew that peace was a lie. The plan was set in motion, and Dr. Carter's team moved forward, gathering what little help they could. They would sneak into one of the most heavily guarded alien facilities, hoping to retrieve the information that would prove humanity had been deceived. But there was a looming fear hanging over them. What if they failed? What if the world would never believe them? It was becoming clearer to her now than ever before. The fight for Earth's survival wasn't just against an alien force. It was against the lies that had taken root in humanity's very mind. The aliens had played their part well, convincing the world that they were the saviors, when in fact, they were the architects of humanity's doom. The truth was buried deep beneath the surface, but soon it would rise. The only question was, would humanity be ready to face it when the truth finally came crashing down? As Dr. Carter's team prepared for the dangerous mission ahead, one thing was certain. The world was about to change forever. But only if humanity was ready to fight back. It started small, with whispered rumors, quiet meetings in hidden rooms, and the occasional cyber attack aimed at uncovering the truth. But soon, it became something bigger. A network of people, ordinary citizens, scientists, and a handful of disillusioned military personnel, began to realize the truth. The aliens weren't here to help. They had come to conquer. They had lied to everyone, manipulated world leaders, and taken control of Earth's most vital systems. The more they tried to resist, the more they realized just how deep the alien influence ran. Dr. Emily Carter's discovery had sparked something much bigger than she ever anticipated. It wasn't just her team anymore. The truth was spreading, slowly but surely, across the world. News outlets, controlled by the alien influence, did their best to suppress the information. But with each passing day, more and more people began to question the so-called saviors. The public was waking up to the deception, and with it came an uprising. Dr. Carter and her team of rebels had managed to stay under the radar, operating in secrecy. They used the information they had uncovered, along with the few weapons they had scavenged, to launch targeted attacks on alien installations. It wasn't much, but it was enough to send a message. Humanity would not go down without a fight. But with each victory, the alien forces retaliated, and they retaliated hard. The world's major cities became war zones. The once peaceful streets were filled with chaos as alien enforcers, massive and terrifying, marched through, imposing their will on the people. The rebels knew they had to move fast. Time was running out. In one of their most daring operations yet, Dr. Carter's team infiltrated an alien stronghold deep beneath a mountain. The building was protected by layers of security, advanced technology, and alien soldiers, but they had no choice. This was where the core of the aliens' control over humanity was centered, and if they wanted to stop the invasion, they needed to destroy it. As they made their way deeper into the facility, the tension was palpable. Every step could be their last. The rebels moved like shadows, avoiding detection by the alien surveillance systems. Dr. Carter's heart raced. They were close, closer than they'd ever been to the truth, and yet the danger was escalating with every moment. The base was a fortress, but inside, they believed they would find the evidence that could expose the aliens' ultimate plan and hopefully stop them before it was too late. They reached the central control room, where an alien entity, one of the highest-ranking officers of their forces, stood waiting. It was cold, calculating, and unlike anything they had ever encountered. The alien's body shimmered with energy, and its eyes gleamed with the knowledge of 1,000 years. It spoke, its voice echoing in their minds. "You should have stayed silent," it said, its words heavy with menace. "You have no idea what you are facing. We did not come to save you. We came to take what was ours." Dr. Carter stood firm, not allowing the fear to take hold. "We know what you've done. You've lied to humanity. We will expose you, no matter the cost." The alien's laugh was cold, and it stepped forward, its form shifting as if it were made of light and shadows. "You can try, but you will fail. You see, you cannot win against something that has already woven itself into the very fabric of your world." The team fought back with everything they had. The battle was fierce, and the alien forces responded in full force. Energy blasts lit up the dark corridors as the rebels fought for their lives, and Dr. Carter knew the stakes were higher than ever. If they didn't make it out of there with the data they needed, humanity would fall under alien control forever. In the chaos, a young hacker in their team, James, managed to access the alien central system. He began to download the information, proof of the alien conspiracy, the destruction they had caused, the resources they had been stealing, and most importantly, the way they had planned to break humanity down, piece by piece. The data was a bombshell. It detailed the aliens' manipulation of Earth's governments, their systematic dismantling of defense systems, and the lies they had fed the world to ensure their dominance. Dr. Carter knew that this information was the key to turning the tide of the war. But it wasn't enough to just have the data. They had to get it back to the world. They had to show humanity the truth. Just as they thought they might succeed, the alien leader unleashed a wave of energy, knocking several of the rebels to the ground. The facility began to shake violently, alarms blaring. They had triggered a countdown, and the base was about to self-destruct. With no time to waste, Dr. Carter ordered the team to fall back, grabbing James and the stolen data. They had to get out, fast. But the escape was anything but easy. The facility was crumbling around them, the alien soldiers closing in. Dr. Carter led the team through narrow hallways, dodging blasts and avoiding alien traps. The mission had been a success, but the cost was high. Several rebels were injured, and they were being chased by enemies who seemed to be everywhere. As they neared the exit, Dr. Carter's heart pounded. They made it outside, but the battle wasn't over. The facility began to explode behind them, sending shockwaves through the ground. They had escaped with their lives, and the proof humanity desperately needed. But they weren't safe yet. The next phase of their mission was clear. They had to broadcast the truth to the world. But the aliens wouldn't let that happen without a fight. The real war was just beginning. As Dr. Carter and her team made their way back to safety, they knew one thing for sure. Humanity had to unite against the aliens. They had exposed the truth, but now they had to make sure everyone else saw it too. The final battle for Earth had just begun. They didn't know what the future would hold, but they were ready. Ready to fight, ready to expose the lies, and ready to strike back. The aliens had underestimated humanity's will to survive. And now they were about to learn a very important lesson. Humans would never give up without a fight. The truth had finally been exposed, and humanity was no longer blind. The footage from the alien base, showing the lies, the manipulation, and the cruel schemes of the invaders, spread across the globe like wildfire. As people saw the evidence with their own eyes, their once blind faith in the aliens shattered. The public outcry was immediate. Protests erupted in every major city as people demanded answers and retribution. Governments, already under alien influence, scrambled to respond, but they were too late. The truth had been unleashed, and it couldn't be undone. Dr. Emily Carter and the team of rebels, though battered and scarred from their mission, had accomplished what seemed impossible. The alien-controlled news networks were struggling to suppress the information, but it was everywhere, on social media, in underground broadcasts, and through hacked networks. The people were waking up to the harsh reality. The aliens were not saviors, but conquerors. They had come to enslave, not to help. And now, humanity was on the verge of rebellion. But exposing the truth was only the first step. The aliens were still on Earth, and their forces were stronger than ever. In cities around the world, their ships floated above, their soldiers patrolled the streets, and their technology continued to control the most vital systems of human society. The aliens had been working in the shadows for far too long, and now they were beginning to fight back with everything they had. The alien leader, known as Zoreth, a figure shrouded in mystery and power, spoke to the world through a broadcast. His cold, calculated voice echoed through the airwaves, sending a chill through the hearts of anyone who heard it. "You dare to defy us." Zoreth's voice resonated, his words laced with contempt. "You cannot win this war. You are nothing but ants beneath our feet. We are the masters of your planet now, and you will bow to us. You have no power to stop us." The message was clear. The aliens had no intention of backing down. They had come to Earth to dominate, and they would use all of their vast resources and advanced technology to crush any resistance. Their control was nearly complete, and the world's leaders, many of whom had been manipulated or controlled by alien technology, were now nothing more than puppets in a deadly game. But humanity was beginning to fight back in ways the aliens had never expected. As the truth spread, resistance groups formed in every corner of the globe. The underground movement that Dr. Carter had helped ignite had grown exponentially. People from all walks of life, from former soldiers to ordinary civilians, joined the cause. They had seen the lies and the destruction, and they would not stand idly by while their world was taken over. Dr. Carter and her team, now recognized as the leaders of the resistance, were strategizing their next move. They knew that taking on the aliens directly would be a suicide mission. Their forces were overwhelming, and their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. But they had one advantage: the truth. The people had woken up, and they were willing to fight. In a hidden underground bunker, Dr. Carter stood before a map of the world, her mind racing with possibilities. The situation was dire, but she couldn't give up. They had exposed the aliens, and now it was time to rally the planet for a final stand. She had no illusions about what they were up against, but she knew that the strength of humanity's spirit was something the aliens could never fully understand. "We need to hit them where it hurts," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady despite the pressure. "We can't fight them with brute force. Not yet. But we can disrupt their control. We'll target their communication networks, their energy sources, and their command centers. If we can destabilize their operations, we might have a chance to turn the tide. The resistance, despite being outgunned and outnumbered, was determined. The streets were filled with fighters, young and old, ready to take up arms and defend their home. Small teams of rebels infiltrated alien facilities, sabotaging their technology and stealing vital intelligence. They had no choice. The aliens would never negotiate, and peace was no longer an option. But every victory, no matter how small, came with a cost. The aliens retaliated brutally. Cities were destroyed, families were torn apart, and the Earth itself began to feel the weight of the war. Yet the resistance grew stronger. As more and more people stood up, the aliens' grip on Earth began to loosen, if only slightly. The people had taken their first steps toward rebellion, and they were not turning back. One day, as Dr. Carter and her team received a report from one of their spies, an unexpected opportunity presented itself. The aliens had a central hub, located deep beneath the surface of the Earth, where their main control systems operated. It was from here that they coordinated their global operations, from manipulating governments to overseeing their military forces. The facility was the heart of their domination, and if it could be destroyed, it would cripple the aliens' entire system. The mission to infiltrate this underground base was dangerous. The aliens had fortified it like a fortress, with state-of-the-art defenses, armed guards, and the latest technology designed to prevent anyone from breaching it. But the resistance had learned the layout of the base, and they had a plan. Dr. Carter's heart raced as she stood at the command center, preparing her team for the most important mission yet. They would break into the heart of the alien forces, strike directly at their core, and expose them for the invaders they truly were. They had to succeed. There was no room for failure. The fate of Earth depended on it. As the team suited up, ready for the fight of their lives, Dr. Carter couldn't help but think of the people they were fighting for. The citizens who had lost their homes, their families, and their freedom. The children who would grow up in a world enslaved by alien overlords if they failed. She thought of the faces of those she had met along the way. The rebels, the fighters, the ordinary citizens who had refused to give in. The final battle was coming, and humanity's last hope rested in their hands. The time for hiding in the shadows was over. It was time to strike back. With the truth now on their side, the people of Earth had only one choice left: to rise, to fight, and to take back their world from the invaders who had stolen it. And so, Dr. Carter and her team set out on the most dangerous mission of all, one that would decide the fate of humanity. The truth had been exposed, and now it was time to make sure the aliens paid for their lies. The war for Earth was about to enter its final deadly phase. The underground base was the heart of the aliens' control over Earth, and Dr. Carter knew that if they were to succeed, this mission would have to be flawless. Every move had to be calculated, every action precise. There could be no room for error. She stood at the front of her team, the weight of the world on her shoulders. They had come a long way, from secret meetings and quiet whispers to open rebellion and full-scale attacks on alien strongholds. But this was the final battle. If they couldn't destroy the heart of the alien network, humanity's fight for freedom would be over. The resistance had assembled everything they could, every expert, every fighter, and every piece of technology that had been salvaged from the wreckage of the alien war machine. They had hacked into the alien communications, stolen weapons, and gathered intelligence on the enemy's movements. But none of that would matter if they couldn't break through the alien defenses at the heart of their operations. The facility they were targeting was deep beneath the Earth's surface, hidden away in a desolate region far from civilization. The entrance was buried under layers of rock. Shielded by alien technology, it would make any normal military operation seem laughable. But the resistance had a secret weapon: the data they had stolen in previous missions. It was enough to crack the alien security systems and give them access to the base's defenses. Dr. Carter's plan was simple, but risky. They would use a series of covered tunnels to infiltrate the base, avoiding the alien guards and automated defenses. Once inside, they would plant explosives at the central control system. The blast would send a pulse throughout the network, crippling the alien communications and defense systems, throwing their operations into chaos. It was their best chance to strike at the heart of the invaders and finally expose them for who they truly were. The night before the mission, Dr. Carter gathered her team for one final briefing. The air was thick with tension, but there was something else there too: hope. The people of Earth had been deceived for too long, and now they had seen the truth. They had seen the aliens for what they were: invaders, manipulators, conquerors. And they were willing to fight back. Dr. Carter could feel the determination in her team. They were ready. "This is it," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We get in, plant the explosives, and get out. We do this, and we take away everything the aliens have built. They've relied on their secrecy, their control, their technology. But once we break this, they won't be able to stop us. They won't be able to stop humanity." Her words hung in the air for a moment before one of the rebels, a former soldier named Marcus, spoke up. "And if we don't make it out?" Dr. Carter gave him a sharp look, then softened. "We make it out. Together. We will not fail. Not now. Not after everything we've been through." The team nodded in agreement, and they moved out under the cover of darkness, their hearts heavy but determined. The mission was perilous, and the alien forces were everywhere, but the people of Earth were no longer the helpless victims they had once been. They had tasted the truth, and now they had something far more powerful than alien technology: the will to survive. The journey to the base was grueling. The tunnels they traveled through were narrow and winding, filled with hidden traps designed to keep intruders out. But with each step, Dr. Carter felt a surge of hope. They were getting closer. They were about to strike a blow that would change the course of history. When they finally reached the entrance of the base, the tension was almost unbearable. They used the alien data they had stolen to bypass the security systems. There were no alarms, no sudden rush of alien soldiers to stop them. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might actually succeed. But as they moved deeper into the facility, the alarms suddenly blared to life, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors. The aliens had known they were coming. They had set a trap. The base's corridors were flooded with alien enforcers, giant soldiers, their bodies shimmering with advanced energy shields and weapons. The rebels were surrounded. "Move! Now!" Dr. Carter shouted, signaling her team to split up and take cover. They had prepared for this, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. The facility, once a silent labyrinth, was now a battlefield. Gunfire rang out as the team fought their way through the alien forces. Energy blasts exploded around them, and the sound of shouts and weapons filled the air. Dr. Carter darted from one side to another, using every bit of her training to stay alive. She knew they didn't have much time. The explosives had to be planted, and the facility had to be destroyed before they were overrun. "Get to the control room," she ordered, leading the charge. "We don't stop until we plant those charges." The rebels pushed forward with everything they had. One by one, alien soldiers fell, but the resistance fighters were quickly running out of ammunition and energy. They could hear the countdown beginning. The aliens had triggered a self-destruct sequence, knowing they couldn't let the base fall into human hands. Dr. Carter reached the control room first, her breath ragged as she planted the explosives, setting the timer. But the doors slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. She turned to see Marcus and the others fighting their way through the remaining aliens. "We have to go now," Marcus shouted, reaching for the door, but Dr. Carter shook her head. "It's too late. Go," she yelled. "Get out of here. I'll hold them off." There was a moment of hesitation, but Dr. Carter pushed them all away. She had led them this far, and she would see it through. The countdown was nearing 0. The mission was nearly complete. With no more time to waste, Dr. Carter stood her ground, using the last of her strength to hold off the advancing aliens. As the final moments ticked away, she heard the blast, the explosion that shattered the base and sent shockwaves through the alien network. The truth was out. The aliens' grip on Earth had been broken. The rebels escaped, their hearts heavy but victorious. They had succeeded. Humanity had struck back. The war wasn't over, but this was a turning point. The aliens had lost their central control, their communications, and the foundation of their conquest. Humanity had fought back, and the invaders had learned the most valuable lesson of all. The spirit of humanity could never be crushed. No matter how strong the enemy, no matter how deep the lies, humanity would always rise again. And as the smoke from the explosion cleared, the rebels knew one thing. The fight was far from over, but Earth's future was no longer in the hands of invaders. It was in their hands, and they would not let it go without a fight. The final battle was just beginning. But now, humanity had hope.